On an ordinary night, a simple gesture changed two lives forever. A genuine smile reached a broken heart in the most unlikely place. When their paths crossed, neither of them knew what was about to happen, and an impromptu dance ended up changing destinies that seemed set in stone. Before you dive into this heartwarming story, don't forget to subscribe for more tales that touch the soul. In a vibrant neighborhood bar, known more for its warmth than its sophistication, a cheerful waitress was the soul of the place. Her name was Emily, and at 28, she carried a contagious energy that seemed to light up the room. Her curly hair always tied in a casual bun, her easy smile and her ability to remember every customer's name made her beloved by all. Tony's bar wasn't a luxurious place, exposed brick walls, wooden tables marked by time, and a counter that had witnessed thousands of stories over the years. But it had soul, it had life, and that owed much to Emily's presence. On an ordinary Tuesday, when the fine autumn rain kept away the more casual customers, she noticed a figure who completely stood out from the usual scenery. A man of approximately 45 took a seat at the most discreet corner table. Impeccably tailored suit, Italian shoes, a watch that probably cost more than the bar's annual rent. His brown eyes seemed lost in some distant point, while he absently twisted a wedding ring on his finger. Emily approached with her order pad and her usual smile. "Good evening. First time here, right? What would you like?" The man seemed to wake from a trance, looking at her as if only now realizing where he was. "A whiskey. Neat, please." Something in his voice, a mix of firmness and fragility, sparked her curiosity. Emily brought the drink, but the man only contemplated the glass without touching it. At the end of the night, as he was preparing to leave, he left a generous tip and an almost inaudible thank you. The following night, to Emily's surprise, he returned. Same table, same order, same distant look. The glass of whiskey remained practically untouched again. On the third consecutive night, following the same silent ritual, something prompted Emily to do more than just serve. It was Tony's bar's anniversary, and as tradition, there was live music, and the staff invited customers to dance. Tony, an Italian gentleman in his 60s, insisted on this annual celebration. "A bar without dancing is like a body without a heart," he always said. Emily approached the mysterious customer's table. "It's the bar's anniversary today. Should we celebrate? With a dance?" She expected a polite refusal, perhaps even an embarrassed smile, but to her surprise, after a few seconds of hesitation, he nodded softly, standing up. "I haven't danced with anyone in the last 3 years," he commented, as he followed Emily to the small, improvised dance floor. The local band was playing a soft version of The Rain Will Fall, and the two moved with surprising synchronicity for strangers. Emily noticed that her partner had class in his movements, something learned in more sophisticated ballrooms than this neighborhood bar. "My name is Emily," she said, as they slowly turned. "Nathan," he responded with a shy smile that seemed to have forgotten how to fully form. Among the other couples dancing animatedly, they seemed to exist in their own bubble. Two strangers connected by something indefinable, moving to the music as if the rest of the world had disappeared. When the music ended, Nathan thanked her with a formal, almost antiquated gesture, and returned to his table. This time he drank his whiskey in small contemplative sips. Before leaving, he looked at Emily one last time, a look that seemed to contain 1,000 unspoken words, and disappeared into the rainy night. A weekend arrived, and with it Nathan's absence. Emily found herself looking for him among the customers who entered, feeling a pang of disappointment each time the door opened, revealing familiar faces, but not his. On Monday, during her shift, Tony called her to the improvised office at the back of the bar. "Someone brought this for you this morning," he said, handing her a heavy envelope of high-quality cream paper. Intrigued, Emily opened the envelope. Inside, a handwritten letter in elegant calligraphy, and 2 tickets to a charity classical music concert at the Symphony Hall. "Emily, thank you for the moment of peace you gave me amid the storm that my life has been these past few years. Dancing, At the bar reminded me that there is still beauty in the world. I would like to invite you to this charity concert. The orchestra will play pieces by Chopin, the favorite composer of Sarah, my wife, who left us 3 years ago due to cancer. The Oncology Research Institute that bears her name will be the beneficiary of the event. I understand if you prefer to decline. Should you accept, I will be waiting at the entrance of the concert hall at 8 p.m. on Saturday. With gratitude, Nathan. Morgan. Emily reread the letter several times. Nathan Morgan. That name seemed vaguely familiar, but she couldn't remember from where. She showed the letter to Tony, who whistled softly. Nathan Morgan? Of Morgan Investments? Girl, you danced with one of the richest men in this country, he exclaimed with wide eyes. Emily researched the name online that night and confirmed. Nathan Morgan was indeed a powerful businessman, owner of a financial and real estate empire. The photos showed a man always impeccably dressed at social events, always serious, always next to Sarah Morgan, an elegant woman whose smile seemed to illuminate each photograph. The most recent news talked about Nathan's withdrawal from social life after his wife's death, victim of an aggressive cancer. For days, Emily debated with herself about accepting the invitation or not. She felt divided between curiosity and intimidation that this world so distant from hers provoked. What could a man like Nathan want with a simple bartender? On Saturday, after hours of indecision, Emily chose a navy blue dress, the most elegant she owned, arranged her hair in a simple updo, and headed to Symphony Hall. Her heart beat rapidly as she climbed the stairs, feeling out of place among people who clearly belonged to a different universe than hers. To her surprise, there was no driver or assistant waiting for her, but Nathan himself, elegant in his black tuxedo, holding a small bouquet of white lilies. "I thought you wouldn't." "Come," he said with a genuine smile that completely transformed his face. "I thought so too," Emily responded honestly, "but something told me I'd regret it if I didn't." Nathan handed her the flowers with a gentle gesture. Sarah always said lilies bring peace to important moments. As they walked to their seats, center box, with a privileged view of the stage, Emily noticed the curious looks and some whispers. Nathan Morgan, the reclusive millionaire widower, accompanied by an unknown woman. The conductor took the stage and introduced the concert, dedicating it to the memory of Sarah Morgan and the institute that bore her name. Nathan remained silent, but Emily noticed his fingers lightly squeezing the concert program when his wife's name was mentioned. The first notes of Chopin filled the theater, and Emily observed how Nathan closed his eyes, letting himself be transported by the music. There was a deep pain there, but also something more, as if each note played was a small tribute to an interrupted love story. During the intermission, Nathan led her to the foyer, where waiters circulated with champagne flutes. She noticed how some people approached to greet him with rehearsed smiles and words, and how he responded with distant politeness, always keeping one hand gently resting on Emily's back, as if he needed that contact to anchor himself in reality. "Everyone looks at me as if I were a curiosity," Emily commented quietly. Nathan smiled with a touch of irony. "Welcome to my world. For them we are an enigma to be deciphered, the reclusive widower and the mysterious companion." "Should I worry about tomorrow's headlines?" "Would you care?" he asked with genuine interest. Emily thought for a moment. "I don't know. I've never had my life exposed like that. It must be strange. It's like living in a glass bowl. Everyone watching, waiting for you to stumble," he responded, with a resignation that seemed to come from years of experience. "But today I don't want to think about that. Today I just want to feel the music and your company." When the concert ended, Emily expected the night to end there, but Nathan surprised her with an invitation to dinner at a small Italian restaurant hidden in an alley in the old part of the city. It was Sarah's favorite place, he explained as he parked his own car, a gesture that surprised Emily, who expected a driver. "We came here for the first time when we were in college, long before any financial success. Trattoria." Di Luca had nothing ostentatious, simple tables covered with checkered tablecloths, walls decorated with black and white photographs of Italy, and the irresistible aroma of homemade sauce in the air. The owner, an elderly Italian gentleman with white hair, embraced Nathan with genuine affection. "How long it's been, my friend, and with a bella signorina." Seated at a discreet table in the back, under the yellowish light of candles and with the soft sound of Italian songs in the background, Emily saw a completely different side of Nathan Morgan. Away from the public figure or the lonely man, from the bar, there eating simple homemade pasta and drinking red wine from a bottle with no special label, he seemed more human, more accessible. "You know, when Sarah got sick," Nathan began, twirling the wine glass between his fingers, "we promised we would live each day as if it were unique. But after it all ended, I could only count the days. Days without her, weeks, months, years." Emily stretched her hand across the table, lightly touching his fingers. "And why did you come to the bar?" Nathan smiled sadly. "That week marked exactly 3 years. I couldn't stay at home surrounded by memories. I wanted to be in a place where nobody knew me, where I could simply exist without being the widower Morgan. It was coincidence that I chose Tony's bar." "And for 3 nights you just looked at a glass of whiskey," observed Emily. "Actually, I was looking at you," he confessed, surprising her. "Your joy, your naturalness, with people. It was like observing someone who still remembers what it's like to live fully." The conversation flowed with surprising ease. Emily told about losing her parents in an accident when she was 21 and how she had to drop out of nursing school to raise her younger sister Jessica, now 23 and studying medicine. She talked about the postponed dreams, about how Tony's bar had been her safe harbor during the most difficult years. Nathan, in turn, revealed the wounds he still carried, the emptiness of the days after Sarah's departure, the guilt for continuing when she couldn't. He talked about the Institute, about how he tried to transform pain into something constructive. "Emily," he said, when it was already past midnight, "I need to confess something. For the first time in 3 years today I didn't count the hours. I didn't think about time passing. I just lived in the moment." Those words, spoken with a disarming vulnerability, touched Emily deeply. There was something in the way Nathan looked at her, not as a powerful man to a simple waitress, but as one soul finding another in the midst of life's storm. When the night ended and he left her in front of the small building where she lived, there were no kisses or grand promises. Just a sincere thank you and a simple question. "May I call you tomorrow?" Emily smiled, feeling her heart light for the first time in a long time. "I would like that." As she watched the car drive away, she knew that something had changed that night. It wasn't just Nathan's story gaining a new chapter. Her own life now seemed to follow an unexpected, unknown, but strangely promising path. What Emily couldn't imagine was that this seemingly casual encounter would be just the first step of a journey that would transform both lives in ways that neither could predict, and that fate, in its infinite wisdom, was just beginning to weave the threads that would unite their stories. In the days that followed that first formal meeting, something unexpected began to bloom between Emily and Nathan. What could have been just a pleasant night transformed into a succession of shared moments, each one breaking down a bit more of the barriers between their very different worlds. Nathan called the next day, as promised. His voice on the phone had a different quality, less formal, warmer. They talked for almost 2 hours, like teenagers rediscovering the pleasure of words exchanged unhurriedly. He told stories about travels to distant places. She shared comedic episodes from the bar's daily life. When they hung up, both felt that peculiar sensation of someone who has unexpectedly found someone who knows how to listen. The following week, to the surprise of Tony and the regular customers, Nathan began to frequent Tony's bar regularly, no longer hidden in a corner, observing life go by, but participating in it. He arrived at the end of Emily's shift, sat at the counter and ordered a beer. No longer the untouched whiskey of the first nights. He chatted with the other customers, learned about their lives, shared stories. Tony, initially suspicious of the rich man, soon surrendered to Nathan's discreet charm. "That one has more substance than he appears," the bar owner commented to Emily one night. "No wonder you have that sparkle in your eyes, girl." Emily blushed. "We're just friends."
Tony,
The old Italian raised a skeptical eyebrow. "If that's friendship, then I'm a 20-year-old young man." The truth was that Emily didn't know how to define what was happening between them. There were no grand declarations or explicit romantic gestures, just a connection that grew with each meeting, each conversation, each shared laugh. It was as if both, wounded by the past, walked carefully through the unknown terrain that opened ahead. On a sunny Sunday, Nathan surprised her with an unusual invitation. He wanted to take her to visit the Sarah Morgan Foundation. Emily initially hesitated, feeling uncomfortable about visiting a place so intrinsically linked to the memory of his wife. But the way Nathan talked about the institute, not as an untouchable sanctuary, but as a place of hope and life, convinced her. The institute was a modern structure, annexed to one of the city's main hospitals. Large windows allowed the generous entry of natural light, and the walls were decorated with colorful artwork, many made by patients in treatment. Far from the oppressive atmosphere Emily had imagined, the place breathed optimism. "Sarah was a pediatric oncologist," explained Nathan as they walked through the corridors. "When she received her own diagnosis, her biggest concern wasn't for herself, but for her young patients." As they moved through the different wings of the institute, Emily noticed how the staff greeted Nathan with genuine respect and affection. It wasn't the fearful reverence offered to a powerful boss, but the care dedicated to someone who is part of a family. "Dr. Nathan," a childish voice cut through the air, and a girl of approximately 8 years, bald due to chemotherapy treatment, but with an illuminated smile, ran toward them. Nathan knelt down to be at the child's height, receiving her with a warm hug. "Hi, Lily. How's my little warrior today? Look what I drew for you." The girl held out a colorful paper where she had drawn what appeared to be herself, holding hands with a tall man wearing a suit. "It's beautiful, Lily," responded Nathan with a choked voice, before turning to Emily. "This is my friend Emily. Emily, meet Lily, the most talented artist in this institute." Emily crouched down next to Nathan, extending her hand to the little one. "Nice to meet you, Lily. Your drawing is really amazing." The girl studied Emily for a few moments with the frankness typical of children, before declaring, "You're pretty. Dr. Nathan smiles more when he looks at you." Nathan blushed slightly, and Emily felt her own heart accelerate. Before either could respond, a nurse called Lily for her therapy session, and the girl said goodbye with another hug for Nathan. "Do you come here often?" asked Emily as they continued the tour. Nathan nodded. "At least twice a week. In the beginning, it was a way to keep Sarah's memory alive, to continue the work she loved so much. But over time, it became my own purpose too." At the end of the visit, Nathan took her to a small, more private room. It was a cozy space with comfortable sofas, bookshelves, and a grand piano by the window. On the walls, photographs of Sarah, with patients, with the medical team, and with Nathan himself. This was her refuge, he explained, where she came to breathe between difficult consultations, to play piano for the patients, to cry when she lost one of them. Emily approached the photographs, observing the face of the woman who had once been the center of Nathan's universe. Sarah had lively eyes, a genuine smile, and a presence that, even through the static images, seemed to radiate strength and kindness. "She was extraordinary," Emily commented softly. "Yes, she was," agreed Nathan, stopping beside her. "Do you know what Sarah told me in her last days? Don't let my departure be the end of your story, Nate. Promise that you'll find reasons to smile again." He turned to face Emily, his eyes shining with contained tears. "For 3 years, I thought I was honoring her memory by keeping this institute running, helping the children she loved so much, but I wasn't fully keeping my promise because I hadn't allowed my heart to feel true joy again." Emily felt the weight of those words, the vulnerability that Nathan exposed by sharing something so intimate. Gently, she took his hand between hers. "I think she would be happy to know that you are trying," she said simply. In that moment, something changed between them, an invisible barrier that broke, allowing the past and present to coexist without conflict. Upon leaving the institute, Nathan asked if she would like to see his home. Emily hesitated again. Each new step seemed to bring them closer to something for which she wasn't sure if she was prepared. But the curiosity and desire to know more about this man who intrigued her so much spoke louder. The Morgan mansion was in an exclusive neighborhood, protected by high walls and a discreet but efficient security system. When the electronic gate opened, revealing a long avenue lined with century-old trees, Emily felt a chill in her stomach. That world was so distant from her reality that it almost seemed an illusion. The house itself was an impressive construction, a harmonious mix of classical architecture with modern touches. Large windows, meticulously maintained gardens, a pool that reflected the sky in its crystalline surface. Everything breathed wealth, but also good taste and sobriety. "It's imposing," commented Emily, trying to find words that didn't sound too naive. Nathan smiled, seeming to understand her discomfort. "It's too big for one person. Sometimes I get lost in my own thoughts in here." As he guided her through the main rooms, Emily realized that despite the evident luxury, the house had personality. It wasn't a cold and impersonal museum, as she had imagined the residence of someone so wealthy would be. There were books piled on small tables, photographs in simple frames, a jacket carelessly thrown over the back of a chair. "I dismissed most of the staff after Sarah passed," explained Nathan. "I kept only Rose, the housekeeper who has been with us for decades, and Peter, who takes care of the garden and maintenance. I prefer the house less perfect, but more alive." In the living room, a cozy space with a stone fireplace and large sofas, Nathan served 2 glasses of wine and invited Emily to sit. Through the large windows, they could see the sun beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. "I'm nervous," admitted Emily, after a sip of wine. "All this is very different from my world." Nathan set his glass on the coffee table and turned to face her. "Emily, I know our lives are completely different. I know it must seem strange for you to be here, as it was strange for me to enter Tony's bar for the first time. But I want you to know that I'm not interested in impressing you with things." He gestured vaguely to the surroundings. "All this is just objects, structures. What matters is what we feel, what we share." "And what do we share, Nathan?" The question escaped before Emily could contain it. Direct, sincere, almost vulnerable. "A second chance," he answered without hesitation. "An opportunity to rediscover beauty in the small things, to feel without fear, to live in the present without the past being a constant ghost." Those words hit Emily deeply. Despite their stories being so different, both carried scars, both had lost fundamental people, both were groping in search of meaning beyond pain. The conversation flowed naturally as the night progressed. Emily told more about Jessica, about how she had strived to give her sister the opportunities she herself hadn't had. She talked about the double shifts at the bar, about the classes she had abandoned, about the dream she had stored in a mental drawer labeled "Maybe Someday." Nathan listened attentively, without interrupting, without offering easy solutions or condescending comments. When she finished, he simply said, "You are extraordinary, Emily. More than you imagine." The moment was interrupted by the ring of her cell phone. It was Jessica, concerned about her sister's prolonged absence. Emily briefly explained where she was, promising to return home soon. "I need to go," she said, standing up. "Jessica is waiting for me for dinner." Nathan nodded, accompanying her to the door. On the way, Emily noticed a brochure on a side table, an informational flyer about the nursing course at the same university where she had briefly studied. "The institute is always looking for dedicated professionals," commented Nathan, following her gaze, "especially those who understand that caring goes beyond technique." Emily felt her heart accelerate. Was that an indirect invitation to resume her studies? A suggestion that she could work at the institute? Or was she reading too much into his words? Before she could respond, Nathan continued, "No one should abandon their dreams, Emily, especially someone with so much to offer as you." At the mansion's door, under the sky now sprinkled with stars, Nathan gently held Emily's hand. He didn't try to kiss her, respecting the space and time that both seemed to need. "May I see you tomorrow?" he asked with an almost youthful hesitation in his voice. Emily smiled. "I have a day off from the bar. We could do something simple. Maybe a picnic in the park?" Nathan's face lit up with the suggestion. "A picnic? I haven't done that since. I can't remember when." "Then it's time to remember," she responded, feeling a wave of tenderness for this powerful man who seemed to rediscover forgotten small pleasures. In the taxi on the way home, Nathan had insisted on calling it and paying for the ride. Emily allowed herself to reflect on the events of the past few weeks. The contrast between the simple life she led and Nathan's world was enormous. The social, economic, and cultural differences seemed to create an abyss between them. And yet there was that undeniable connection, that sensation of mutual understanding that transcended external circumstances. It was as if, somehow, their souls recognized each other beyond appearances, beyond contexts, beyond individual stories. When she arrived at the small apartment she shared with Jessica, she found her sister studying at the kitchen table, surrounded by anatomy books and empty coffee cups. "So," began Jessica with a mischievous smile, "how was it at your Millionaire's house?" Emily rolled her eyes but couldn't contain her own smile. "He's not my millionaire, Jess, and it was interesting." "Interesting? Is that what we're calling it when we come back after 10 at night with that sparkle in our eyes?" Emily threw a cushion at her sister, laughing. "It's complicated, okay? He's still processing the loss of his wife. I have my whole life structured here with you. Our worlds are completely different. And yet you're in love with him," completed Jessica with the certainty of someone who knows her sister better than anyone. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Jessica closed the book she was studying and looked at Emily seriously. Since our parents passed away, you've dedicated every minute of your life to taking care of me, to ensuring I had a future. You sacrificed your own dreams, your youth." "Jess, don't start with this. Let me finish. You deserve to be happy, Em. You deserve to explore this possibility, wherever it may lead you. And if that means falling in love with a millionaire widower who looks at you as if you were the sun after years of darkness, well, who am I to argue with destiny?" Emily felt tears forming in the corners of her eyes. Jessica's approval meant more than anyone else could imagine. The two had only each other for so long that her younger sister's opinion was fundamental in any important decision. "I'm afraid, Jess," confessed Emily, sitting next to her sister, afraid of getting hurt, of hurting him, of discovering we're just filling voids in each other. Jessica took her sister's hand between hers. "Fear is part of it, Em. But worse than getting hurt trying is going through life wondering how it would have been if you had had courage." That night, lying in her simple bed, in the small room of the modest apartment, Emily thought about Nathan's mansion, the corridors of the Institute, the piano in Sarah's room, little Lily's drawing. She thought about worlds that collide and transform each other mutually. What was being born between her and Nathan was fragile and precious, like a bud that breaks through the soil after a long winter. It needed care, time, patience. But perhaps, just perhaps, it could bloom into something beautiful and lasting, something that transcended the differences and honored the stories that brought them there. With that comforting thought, Emily fell asleep, dreaming of picnics in the park, piano music, and second chances that arise in the most unexpected places. The picnic in the park marked the beginning of a transformation in the relationship between Emily and Nathan. Sitting on a checkered blanket in the shade of a leafy tree, with a basket full of simple treats prepared by Emily, they shared not only food, but also carefree laughter and whispered confessions. It was there, while watching children playing in the distance and feeling the gentle afternoon breeze, that Nathan held Emily's hand for the first time with declaredly romantic intent. "You know," he said, contemplating their intertwined fingers, "a month ago I wouldn't have imagined being here feeling what I'm feeling." Emily smiled, gently squeezing his hand. "And what exactly are you feeling?" Nathan took a deep breath before answering, as if searching for the exact words for a complex feeling. "Hope, possibility. As if, after a long time navigating turbulent Waters I could glimpse solid ground on the horizon. That day in the park was followed by other meetings, increasingly frequent and meaningful. Nathan would appear at Tony's bar at the end of Emily's shifts. She would accompany him on visits. To the Institute, both explored corners of the city that one or the other had never known. A delicate choreography of two people relearning to make room in their lives for something new. 1 month after the picnic, during a quiet dinner on the mansion's veranda, Nathan made a proposal that caught Emily by surprise. "I want you to return to nursing school," he said, after she casually mentioned an article about palliative care she had read online. Emily slowly put down her fork. "Nathan, I can't simply go back to college. I have bills to pay. Jessica still needs support with her studies." "I know," he interrupted gently, "and I'm not suggesting you abandon your responsibilities. I'm offering a scholarship through the Sarah Morgan Foundation." "A scholarship?" Emily felt confused. "For me?" Nathan nodded, his eyes reflecting the seriousness of the proposal. "The Institute offers scholarships annually for promising students in the health field. There's a specific vacancy for pediatric oncology nursing, exactly the area you were studying when you had to drop out." But Emily hesitated, a whirlwind of conflicting emotions taking over her. Wouldn't people find it strange? The founder's girlfriend receiving a scholarship? Nathan smiled at hearing the term girlfriend. It was the first time Emily had defined their relationship this way. "The selection is made by an independent committee. I don't interfere with the choices. You would go through the same process as any other candidate: interview, academic history analysis, knowledge test. The only difference is that I would be ensuring you knew about the opportunity and had a chance to participate." Emily bit her lower lip, thoughtful. The idea of resuming her studies was tempting, an abandoned dream that always hurt to leave behind. But accepting financial help from Nathan, even through official channels of the Institute, seemed to cross a line she wasn't sure she should cross. "I need to think," she finally answered. "It's a generous offer, but—" "But you have your pride and your independence," completed Nathan with an understanding smile. "And I deeply admire that, Emily. Just don't let pride prevent you from following your dreams when a legitimate opportunity arises." That night, Emily shared the proposal with Jessica, hoping to find in her sister the voice of reason that would help her make a decision. "You're crazy if you don't accept," Jessica stated categorically, while preparing tea in the small apartment kitchen. "It's the opportunity you've been waiting for years." "But it feels wrong, Jess, as if I were taking advantage of his position." Jessica rolled her eyes with the impatience typical of young people. "If it were any other person offering a chance to participate in a fair selection for a scholarship, would you hesitate? If Tony recommended you for a bar management training program, would you refuse?" "It's different," insisted Emily. "It's only different because you're afraid," responded Jessica, handing a steaming cup to her sister. "Afraid that if you accept this from him, you'll be creating an unequal dynamic. Afraid that people will think you're with him out of interest. Afraid that taking this step will make everything more real between you." Emily swallowed hard, surprised by the precision with which her sister had identified her deepest fears. "Since when did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best," smiled Jessica. "Look, Em, you spent years taking care of me, ensuring I could follow my dreams. Now it's your turn. And if the universe is offering you this chance through Nathan, who are we to question?" 2 weeks later, Emily was sitting in a waiting room at the Sarah Morgan Foundation, nervously awaiting her interview for the scholarship. Nathan, respecting the independence of the selection process, wasn't even in the building that day. The committee, formed by 3 health professionals and a social worker, was rigorous and thorough. They questioned Emily about her motivations, her previous experiences, her technical knowledge, her career perspectives. At no moment did they mention her relationship with Nathan. They treated her like any other candidate. When the result came out a week later, Emily couldn't contain her tears when reading the official email. She had been selected. The scholarship would fully cover her studies and even included a monthly stipend that would allow her to reduce her hours at the bar to dedicate herself to college. "I did it on my own merit," she said to Nathan that night. while they celebrated with champagne on the mansion's veranda. The committee didn't even know who I was in relation to you. Nathan smiled, proud. I never doubted that. You are extraordinary in your own right, Emily. I always knew. The return to classes was a period of intense adaptation for Emily. At 28, she felt out of place among younger colleagues, and the knowledge accumulated in previous years seemed distant, but her determination and life experience compensated for the initial difficulties. Soon, professors and colleagues recognized her potential and dedication. Nathan, in turn, showed himself to be a constant but never invasive support. He helped her with studies when requested, patiently listened to her accounts of classes and internships, celebrated each small academic victory as if it were his own. And most importantly, he never made her feel diminished for receiving the scholarship or for needing to balance work and studies. 4 months after the start of classes, Emily began a supervised internship at the Sarah Morgan Foundation. There, she applied in practice the knowledge acquired in classrooms, mainly in accompanying children in oncological treatment. Her natural empathy and the ability to provide comfort in difficult moments soon caught the attention of the medical team. Lily, the young patient they had met months before, became especially close to Emily. The girl, who was responding well to treatment but still faced difficult days, anxiously awaited the visits from the curly-haired nurse, as she affectionately called her. "Are you going to marry Dr. Nathan?" asked Lily one afternoon, while Emily changed her venous access. Emily blushed intensely, caught off guard by the direct question. "Why are you asking that, sweetheart?" "Because you look at each other like in princess movies," answered the girl with the sincerity of children, "and because he smiles a lot when he talks about you." Before Emily could elaborate an adequate response, Lily's mother intervened with a gentle smile. "Sorry for her indiscretion, but you know, Emily, we've all noticed the change in Dr. Morgan since you appeared. It's as if a light had been relit." Those words touched Emily deeply. She already knew that her feelings for Nathan had grown beyond any initial expectation, but hearing that her presence had transformed his life in a way so visible to others was something new and moving. That same night, Emily accompanied Nathan to a charity event for the Institute, her first official public appearance as a couple. Wearing an elegant dress borrowed from a college colleague, she had gently declined Nathan's offer to buy her a new one. She felt nervous as she entered the luxurious hotel ballroom where the dinner was taking place. "Everyone is looking," she whispered to Nathan as they walked between the tables. "They're looking because you're stunning," he responded with a reassuring smile, gently squeezing her hand. The reality, however, was more complex than both would like to admit. Emily soon noticed the curious looks, the poorly disguised whispers, the silent evaluations. The world of the ultra-rich was like an exclusive club with unwritten rules, and she was clearly an outsider. During the cocktail that preceded dinner, an elegant middle-aged woman approached them. "Nathan, darling, it's been so long," she exclaimed, kissing the air near his cheeks before turning inquisitive eyes to Emily. "And who is this charming young woman?" "Claire, this is Emily Spencer, my girlfriend," Nathan introduced with dignified simplicity. "Emily, Claire Montgomery is one of the Institute's biggest donors and an old family friend." Claire examined Emily from head to toe with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Girlfriend? What a lovely surprise. And what do you do?" "Dear model actress?" The condescending tone was evident, and Emily felt her stomach tighten. Before she could respond, Nathan intervened with a calm but firm voice. "Emily is a nursing student, a scholar at the Institute. In fact, she's one of the most promising professionals we have accompanying our children." The surprise on Claire's face was almost comical. "Oh, how interesting. Well, if you'll excuse me, I need to greet the Harringtons. Lovely to meet you, Emily." As the woman hurriedly walked away, Emily let out a tense sigh. "This is going to be a constant, isn't it? People assuming I'm some kind of trophy for you." Nathan held her gaze with intensity. "What others think doesn't matter, Emily. What matters is what we know about ourselves and about what we're building together." That night was a test of resistance for Emily. She faced several moments similar to the encounter with Claire. Indiscreet questions, malicious assumptions, looks of curiosity or disapproval. But with each challenge, She felt stronger, more secure of herself and of the relationship she was building with Nathan. In the speech he gave as director of the institute, Nathan surprised everyone by calling Emily to the stage, presenting her not only as his companion, but as an example of the type of dedicated professional the institute sought to form. The work of the Sarah Morgan Foundation is only possible because extraordinary people like Emily choose to dedicate their lives to caring for those who need it most, he declared, looking at her with undeniable pride. Those words, spoken in front of hundreds of influential people, were more than a compliment. They were a public declaration that Nathan valued Emily for who she was, for her own merits, regardless of the personal relationship between them. On the way home, already, in the privacy of the car, Emily finally relaxed. "Thank you for defending me today, for valuing me publicly." Nathan took her hand and kissed it gently. "I did nothing but tell the truth. You are amazing, Emily. And each day, I fall more in love with you." It was the first time he had verbalized his feelings so clearly, and Emily felt her heart accelerate. "I'm in love with you too, Nathan, more than I thought possible." The kiss that sealed that confession was deep and filled with emotion, not just desire, but mutual recognition, gratitude for the chance to start over, a silent promise of a shared future. In the following weeks, the relationship between them deepened naturally. Emily began to occasionally sleep at the mansion, although she maintained her apartment with Jessica. Nathan surprised her by transforming one of the empty rooms into a study space for her, with nursing books, a new computer, and a desk strategically positioned to take advantage of the natural light. "I don't want you to move in completely or abandon your independence," he explained when revealing the new space. "I just want you to know that there is room for you here, for your dreams, for your needs." The gesture, as thoughtful as it was respectful, perfectly symbolized the balance they were trying to build, a relationship where both could grow individually while creating something new together. On a Saturday afternoon, while studying for an important test, Emily received an unexpected call from Tony. The bar owner seemed agitated, his normally jovial voice now tense and worried. "Emily, dear, you need to come to the bar. It's urgent." Alarmed, she immediately closed her books. "What happened, Tony? Did someone get hurt?" "No, it's not that. It's—" He hesitated, seeming to choose his words. "Better you come see for yourself. It has to do with your past." Intrigued and apprehensive, Emily headed to Tony's bar, where she had reduced her workload since starting her studies, but still worked some shifts per week. The place was almost empty at that time of the afternoon, with only a few regular customers occupying distant tables. Tony was waiting for her at the counter, next to a man with his back to the entrance. When Emily approached, the stranger turned around and she felt the world momentarily stop. "Charles," she whispered, hardly believing what her eyes were seeing. The man in front of her, approximately 50 years old, with graying hair and eyes identical to hers, stood up slowly. "Hello, daughter." Emily felt her legs weaken. Charles Spencer, her father, whom everyone believed had died along with her mother in that terrible car accident 7 years ago, was alive, standing in front of her, looking at her with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "This isn't possible," she stammered, leaning on the counter to avoid falling. You died. I identified the bodies. I buried you." Charles's expression was one of deep pain. "I know I owe you explanations, Emily. Explanations I never thought I'd have the courage to give in person. But when I found out you were resuming your studies, that you were rebuilding your life, I needed to see you, needed to try to explain." Tony, sensing the intensity of the moment, led both to a private room at the back of the bar, offering them privacy for a conversation that promised to be one of the most difficult of Emily's life. "Why?" was all she managed to ask when she found herself alone with the man she had mourned as dead for 7 long years. "Why fake your death? Why abandon us, me and Jessica, when we needed you the most?" Charles took a deep breath, the weight of 7 years of absence evident in his slumped shoulders. "Your mother really did die in that accident, Emily, but I wasn't in the car with her." The revelation fell like a bomb on Emily. Her mother was driving alone that fateful night. But then, who was the other body she had identified, mangled, beyond recognition, but that everyone assumed was her father due to the documents found? "I was running away, Emily," continued Charles, his voice trembling. "I'd gotten involved with dangerous people, made terrible choices. I embezzled money from the company where I worked, accumulated enormous debts with loan sharks. When it all came to light, when I realized there was no way out, I planned my own disappearance." Emily listened, astonished, as her father revealed a sordid story of fraud, gambling, and identity falsification. The person in the car with her mother was a desperate man he had hired to assume his identity, someone as indebted as himself, willing to accept money to disappear with Charles Spencer's documents. The plan was for him to disappear with my documents, leaving everyone thinking I had fled the country. Your mother knew nothing. I was going to contact her when I was safe, convince her to join me with you two. But then the accident happened. Charles's voice failed. When I found out, I was already hiding in another state. I saw in the newspapers, "Couple dies in accident." I understood that everyone assumed it was me and your mother, and then I realized that maybe it was better that way. "Better!" exploded Emily, tears of anger streaming down her face. "You thought it was better to let your daughters believe they were orphans. Do you have any idea what we went through? I was 21, Charles. I had to drop out of college to take care of Jessica. I worked 3 different jobs to keep her in school. Meanwhile, you were alive, rebuilding your life somewhere." The shame on Charles's face was palpable. "I convinced myself that you would be better off without me, without my problems, without the dangerous people I owed money to. I told myself I was protecting you by remaining dead. But the truth, Emily, is that I was a coward, terribly coward." Emily struggled to process everything she was hearing. Her mother had really died in that accident, but her father had chosen to abandon them, leaving them to face grief, financial difficulties, the painful reconstruction of life, all alone. "Why come back now?" she asked, wiping away tears with the back of her hand. "After 7 years, what changed?" Charles took a folded newspaper from the inside pocket of his worn jacket. It was a society page from a few weeks back, the coverage of the Sarah Morgan Foundation charity event. There was a photo of Emily next to Nathan, both smiling under the caption, "Businessman Nathan Morgan and his girlfriend, nursing student Emily Spencer, during charity dinner." "I saw this by chance," explained Charles. "I recognized you immediately. I discovered you were studying again, that you had received a scholarship, that you were happy, that you had found someone." He hesitated. "I didn't come to ask forgiveness, Emily. I know what I did is unforgivable. I came only so that you would know the truth, so that you wouldn't live with the shadow of a lie about your parents." Emily felt suffocated by the cruel irony of the situation. For 7 years she had felt guilty for not being able to achieve the dreams her parents had for her, especially the nursing degree they so wanted to see her complete. And now she discovered that one of them had chosen to abandon her out of cowardice, leaving her to carry the burden of responsibilities that weren't hers. "And Jessica?" she finally asked. "Do you want to see her too?" Charles lowered his eyes. "Only if you think it's appropriate. I don't want to cause more pain than I've already caused." Emily stood up, feeling strangely calm despite the emotional storm consuming her inside. "I don't know what to say to you, Charles. I don't know if I can ever forgive you or if I want you back in our lives. I need to think. I need to talk to Jessica. She deserves to know the truth as much as I do." "I understand," he responded, resigned. "I'll leave my contacts with Tony. If you want to talk to me again, no more about these years, or just yell at me, I'll be available." Emily nodded stiffly. "One last question. Are you in trouble now? Is it for money that you've returned?" The pain in Charles's eyes was genuine. "No, Emily. I rebuilt my life in Portland. I work as an accountant in a small company. I live modestly but honestly. I didn't come to ask for anything material, just the chance to explain." Leaving Tony's bar, Emily felt as if she had been hit by a hurricane. All her certainties, all the narratives she had built about her past, were now shattered at her feet. Her father was alive. He had chosen to abandon them. And now, just when her life finally seemed to find a new direction, he resurfaced, bringing with him a whirlwind of contradictory emotions. Without thinking twice, Emily headed to Nathan's mansion. She needed him now more than ever, not to solve her problems, but to be the anchor that would prevent her from drowning in the emotional storm that enveloped her. Nathan immediately noticed something was wrong when he saw her enter. Without asking questions, he just hugged her for a long time, offering silent comfort. When she finally felt ready to talk, she told him everything, every painful detail of the revelation she had received. "I don't know what to do," she concluded, exhausted. "How do I tell this to Jessica? How do I process all this?" Nathan thought for a few moments before responding. "There's no easy answer, Emily. What your father did was indefensible. But what you'll do now, that's about you, not about him. It's about what will bring peace to your heart. And if I don't know what that is," she asked, feeling lost like a child. "Then we'll take one step at a time," responded Nathan, holding her hands. "First, we talk to Jessica. Then, you two decide together if you want to maintain any contact with him, and I'll be by your side every step of the way, not to decide for you, but to support you in the decisions you make." That night, as she cried in Nathan's arms, Emily understood that she had found in him much more than a new love. She had found a true partner, someone willing to face at her side the storms that life insisted on throwing in her path. The fee. Next day, with Nathan present as silent support, Emily revealed the truth to Jessica. The younger sister went through the entire emotional spectrum in a matter of hours: shock, denial, anger, deep sadness. Unlike Emily, however, Jessica immediately expressed the desire to confront their father. "I want to look him in the eyes and ask how he could do this to us," she declared, determined. The meeting between Charles Spencer and his two daughters occurred 3 days later, in a neutral cafe selected for the delicate moment. Nathan maintained a respectful distance, present enough to offer support, but allowing the family to face that situation on their own. The hours that followed were intense and emotionally exhausting. Jessica asked all the questions that had accumulated in her heart since Emily's revelation. Charles, in turn, answered everything with brutal honesty, without trying to justify his actions, fully assuming his cowardice and failures. At the end of the meeting, nothing was resolved, but a first step had been taken. Charles didn't ask to immediately return to his daughters' lives, nor did they offer instant forgiveness. They agreed only to keep an open channel of communication, to allow time to help determine what kind of relationship, if any, would be possible to build from the ruins of that devastating revelation. When they returned to the apartment that night, Nathan finally shared something he had been keeping for some time. "There's a piece of land," he said, while preparing a tea to calm Emily's nerves, "on the hill overlooking the lake near the park where we had our picnic. I always thought it would be a perfect place to build a house." Emily looked at him, confused by the apparent change of subject. "A house?" Nathan nodded, his eyes full of a deep feeling that made her heart accelerate. "A house for us, Emily, if you want. A place that's neither mine nor yours but ours. A place for us to build together from the foundations as we have built this relationship." Even amid the emotional turbulence of the last few days, Emily couldn't help but feel her heart fill with renewed hope. Nathan's proposal wasn't just about a physical house. It was about creating something new together, about building a shared future, regardless of the ghosts of the past that each of them carried. "I would love to see that land," she responded simply, resting her head on his shoulder. The following day, Nathan took her to the location, a generous area of land at one of the highest points of the city, with a privileged view of the lake and the park where they had shared so many special moments. There was nothing there but wild vegetation and the infinite potential that only a blank space can offer. "We can plan every detail together," explained Nathan as they walked through the land. "From the basic floor plan to the last light switch. I want it to be exactly as we dream. A true home, not just a house." Emily closed her eyes, letting The breeze caressed her face as she imagined the possibilities. A house with large windows to take advantage of the view, a garden for Jessica to study when she came to visit, perhaps one day extra rooms for children running through the corridors. "It's perfect," she whispered, opening her eyes to find Nathan watching her with intensity. There under the open sky, surrounded only by nature and the silent promises of the future, Nathan held Emily's hands between his. There was no ring, no knees bent in a traditional pose, just two hearts beating in sync, two gazes that met with absolute certainty. "Marry me, Emily," he asked, his voice firm despite the evident emotion. "Build a life with me, not just this house, but everything that comes ahead. The challenges, the joys, the difficult moments, the achievements. I want to share everything with you." Emily felt tears of happiness blur her vision. After everything, the grief for the parents she believed she had lost, the struggle to raise Jessica, the postponed dreams, the devastating revelation about her father, and the unexpected encounter with Nathan, there she was about to take a step she had never imagined possible. "Yes," she answered simply, her smile illuminating a face still marked by the tears of previous days. "I want to build everything with you, Nathan. Each brick, each moment, each memory." The kiss that sealed that commitment was like a silent promise of overcoming, of reconstruction, of love that transcends the scars of the past. There on that empty land that would one day house their joint home, Emily and Nathan reaffirmed what they had been discovering over the months, that sometimes one needs to lose a lot to value what one finds, and that endings are just beginnings, in disguise for those who have the courage to start over. What neither of them could imagine at that moment of pure happiness was that life still held unexpected challenges for them, that their love story, still under construction like the house they planned to build, would face storms capable of shaking even the most solid foundations. But this they would discover soon, much sooner than they could imagine. The news of the engagement between Nathan Morgan, one of the country's most influential businessmen, and Emily Spencer, former waitress and current nursing student, spread quickly. The tabloids didn't take long to stamp sensationalist headlines: "Real-life Cinderella," "Waitress conquers millionaire's heart," Emily Spencer's fairy tale, from serving tables to serving dinners in high society. Emily tried to ignore the fallacious comments and speculations about her interest in Nathan's finances, focusing on her studies and the preparations for the house construction. Nathan, in turn, protected her as much as he could from media exposure, refusing interviews about his personal life and directing his legal team to act against particularly offensive publications. "This will pass," he assured, when he noticed Emily bothered by some new report. "Soon they'll find another couple to harass." The house project advanced quickly. Emily and Nathan had hired a renowned architect who knew how to perfectly capture the essence of what they wanted: a residence that combined elegance and coziness, modernity and tradition. Every detail was discussed between the two, from the type of wood for the floor to the arrangement of outlets in each room. "I never imagined that choosing a faucet could be so complex," laughed Emily, during one of their countless visits to construction material stores. Nathan smiled, embracing her from behind as they contemplated seemingly identical options of metals for the master bathroom. "That's because we're not just choosing faucets, we're building a home." While the house took shape on paper, and the first foundations began to be erected on the land, Emily also advanced in her studies and internship. Her performance at the Sarah Morgan Foundation increasingly impressed the medical team, especially her ability to connect with child patients in critical moments. "You have a natural gift," commented Dr. Olivia Matthews, coordinator of the oncological team, after observing her calm a 6-year-old boy during a particularly painful procedure. "Children instinctively trust you." The relationship with Charles, her newly rediscovered father, evolved slowly. After the initial shock, Emily and Jessica accepted to maintain limited contact with him: occasional messages, some calls, a monthly coffee for updates about their lives. It wasn't complete forgiveness, nor full reconciliation, but a delicate balance that allowed all parties to process the new reality at their own pace. Nathan maintained himself respectfully distant from these interactions, offering support without interfering in the family process. "They're your decisions, Emily," he would say when consulted on the matter. "I trust your judgment about what's best for you and Jessica." 6 months after the engagement, when the walls of the new house already clearly outlined its final structure, against the sky, the plans for the wedding began to take shape. Nathan had suggested an intimate ceremony with only family members and close friends, something completely different from the grand social events he was accustomed to in his public life. "I want our day to be about us, not about appearances or external expectations," he explained, while they discussed ideas for the celebration. Emily, who had never dreamed of extravagant parties, promptly agreed. They planned a simple ceremony on the land of the future house itself, with the panoramic view of the lake as a natural backdrop. The date was set for 3 months from then, when the construction would be advanced enough to host the event, even without the final finishing touches. It was during this period of happy planning that the storm arrived, unforeseen, devastating, and capable of shaking even the most solid structures. It all began with an anonymous call to the Ethics Committee of the University Hospital, to which the Sarah Morgan Foundation was linked. The whistleblower alleged to have proof that the scholarship granted to Emily had been manipulated by Nathan's direct influence, circumventing the official selection criteria. In a matter of days, what began as an administrative investigation transformed into a public scandal. The same tabloids that before romanticized the love story between the businessman and the former waitress now published accusatory headlines. "Morgan favors girlfriend in selection process. Millionaire scholarship, the price of a romance. Charitable institute under suspicion of favoritism." The Ethics Committee summoned Emily and Nathan for separate testimonies. Despite all the documentary evidence proving that the selection process had been legitimate, including evaluations, recorded interviews, and technical opinions from the evaluators, the shadow of doubt had been cast. "This is ridiculous," exclaimed Nathan, furious, after another session of questioning. "I have all the documents proving you went through exactly the same process as any other candidate." Emily, however, seemed strangely resigned. "Someone is determined to discredit me, Nathan. The question is, who would gain from this?" The answer came a few weeks later, when the country's highest circulation newspaper published a special article revealing that the anonymous complaint had come from Claire Montgomery, the same socialite, who had treated Emily with condescension at the charity event. According to the report, Claire had nurtured more than friendship for Nathan for years, since even before his marriage to Sarah, and saw in Emily an unworthy intruder in the place she secretly coveted. "I should have realized," lamented Nathan upon reading the article. "Claire was always possessive with me, even when she was just a family friend. When Sarah got sick, she was always present, offering support, subtly insinuating herself." "And then I appeared," completed Emily, "the waitress without birth or fortune, conquering what she couldn't achieve in decades of attempts." Despite the revelation about the origin of the complaint, the damage was already done. The Ethics Committee, pressured by media exposure, determined that, although there was no concrete evidence of manipulation in the selection process, the situation created an apparent conflict of interest that compromised the credibility of the scholarship program. The decision fell like a bomb. Emily could keep her scholarship and continue her studies, but she should transfer her internship to another hospital, completely disassociating herself from the Sarah Morgan Foundation until the completion of her graduation. "They can't do this," protested Nathan, ready to activate his lawyers and fight against the decision. "It's unfair and harmful to your training." Emily, however, surprised him with her reaction. "I'll accept the transfer, Nathan." "But why? We can contest this. I have resources to—" "Exactly for that reason," interrupted Emily gently. "Because you have resources, because you can fight and probably win, and because each victory obtained in that way will reinforce what everyone is saying, that I am where I am because of your influence, not my own merit." That night was one of the most difficult for the couple. They argued like never before, not out of anger at each other, but from the frustration of seeing themselves cornered in an unfair situation. Nathan felt guilty for having inadvertently exposed Emily to this type of scrutiny. Emily, in turn, questioned if she had been naive in believing she could freely transit between two so distinct worlds without facing resistance. "Maybe we're going too fast," suggested Emily at one point, the words escaping before she could contain them. With the house, the wedding, everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan looked at her with an expression of pain so deep that she immediately regretted what she had said. "Do you want to postpone the wedding?" he finally asked, his controlled voice barely disguising the devastation the question caused him. Emily hesitated, divided between her love for Nathan and the fear of the challenges that seemed to multiply. "I don't know, Nathan. I just know that I don't want our union to begin under this cloud of suspicions and accusations." That night, for the first time since they had become a couple, they slept separately. Emily in her old apartment with Jessica, Nathan alone in the mansion that now seemed to painfully echo with her absence. The days that followed were nebulous for both. Emily began her internship at the new hospital, a public institution with much fewer resources than the Sarah Morgan Foundation, but with equally challenging cases and dedicated staff. Nathan immersed himself in work, personally supervising the construction of the house, as if each brick placed could somehow keep him connected to Emily and the plans they had made together. They communicated through brief messages, exchanged polite but distant calls. Neither knew exactly how to cross that abyss that seemed to grow between them, an abyss built not by lack of love, but by fear that the differences in their worlds might, after all, be insurmountable. It was Lily, the young patient from the EE Institute, who inadvertently helped break the impasse. Now in remission, though still in regular follow-up, the girl sent separate drawings to Emily and Nathan, two halves of a broken heart, with the message, "Please fix this." When Nathan received his half of the drawing, he knew exactly what he needed to do. On a rainy Saturday afternoon, exactly 1 month after their temporary separation, he appeared without warning at the small apartment Emily shared with her sister. He was soaked by the rain, carrying only the half of the heart drawn by Lily and a brown envelope. "Nathan," exclaimed Emily, surprised to open the door. "What are you?" Without waiting for an invitation, he entered, determination evident in every movement. "We need to talk, Emily, really without evasions, without fear." Jessica, sensing the gravity of the moment, discreetly withdrew to her room, leaving the couple alone in the small living room. "First," began Nathan, extending the envelope to Emily, "I want you to see this." Inside were official documents with the letterhead of the Sarah Morgan Foundation. Emily quickly went through the papers, her eyes widening as she understood their content. "You resigned from the presidency of the Institute?" Nathan nodded. "I transferred the administration to an independent board. I will continue as a donor and collaborator, but I will have no decision-making power over operations, hiring, or scholarship programs." "Why?" asked Emily, astonished. "Because I realized that part of the problem was us, you and me, trying to reconcile our personal and professional roles in the same space. And mainly," he continued, approaching to take her hands between his, "because I understood that you didn't need to prove anything to anyone, but I needed to prove something to you." "What?" "That I'm willing to give up anything for us. That I understand your fears and insecurities. That I respect your desire for achievements by your own merit." He smiled softly. "And that I'm not afraid to make drastic changes when necessary." Emily felt tears forming in her eyes. "Nathan, you didn't need to do this. The Institute was your legacy, your way of honoring Sarah." "Sarah's true legacy isn't in an institute name, Emily. It's in each life we help save, in each child we manage to treat." He gently caressed her face. "And as for us, resuming your internship there, when you graduate will be your decision, based exclusively on your professional merits without any conflict of interest." That gesture, so significant, so deeply altruistic, touched Emily like no other. It wasn't just the resignation from the position, but what it represented. Nathan's absolute understanding of her deepest concerns, his respect for her independence, his willingness to find solutions that honored both. "I have something to show you too," she said, heading to the small room she occupied. She returned with a worn notebook in her hands, her personal diary. She opened it to a marked page and handed it to Nathan. "I wrote this yesterday," she explained. Nathan read in silence the words written in Emily's delicate handwriting. "I realized today that my biggest fear isn't that others doubt my worth or ability. My biggest fear is not valuing sufficiently what I found with Nathan, a love that transcends circumstances, origins, social expectations. I have fought so hard to prove my independence that I almost sacrificed the best part of me, my capacity to love without reservations, to trust fully, to build something greater than myself." When he raised his eyes from the diary, there were unshed tears shining in them. "Emily, I think we were both afraid," she continued. "You of losing me. To my insecurities, me of losing my identity in this new world. But the truth is that we don't need to choose between who we are and who we can be together." Nathan put down the diary and took the half of Lily's drawing from his pocket. Emily, immediately understanding, retrieved her own half. Together, the two parts formed a complete heart, imperfect in its childish strokes but perfect in its meaning. "Marry me," Nathan asked again, holding the two halves united between them. "Not in 3 months, not when the house is ready, not when everything is perfect. Marry me now as we are, with all the imperfections and challenges, because nothing else matters to me beyond building together, day by day, whatever life brings." "Sir," Emily didn't need to reflect. "Yes," she answered simply, before closing the space between them with a kiss that sealed not just a reconciliation, but a renewed commitment to face the world together, as equals, as partners, as lovers. The wedding took place 2 weeks later, not on the land of the still unfinished house, but at Tony's bar, the place where it all began. The idea, surprisingly, came from Nathan, who understood the symbolic importance of honoring Emily's origins and the journey that led them to meet. The old bar was transformed for the occasion. Delicate lights hanging from the ceiling, simple but elegant arrangements of wildflowers on the tables, a small improvised dance floor where the bride and groom had shared their first dance months before. Tony, emotional, served as best man and proud host. The guest list was eclectic. Jessica, radiant as maid of honor, Charles discreetly present in the last row, still walking on the tightrope of rapprochement with his daughters, colleagues from the bar, doctors and nurses from the institute, children in treatment who could leave the hospital, including Lily, now with thin hair beginning to grow back and a smile that illuminated the environment, some loyal friends of Nathan from the business world, and Rose, the housekeeper who had seen him grow up and now openly cried with happiness. Amid that unlikely gathering of people from such different worlds, Nathan and Emily exchanged vows written by themselves, simple, true words that spoke not of a fairy tale love, but of a real commitment between two people who chose to grow together despite adversities. "I promise to be by your side," said Nathan, his voice firm despite the emotion. "Not as a savior or provider, but as your equal partner in this journey. I promise to respect your dreams as if they were my own, to celebrate your achievements without trying to overshadow them with my own light, and to always remember that our strength lies in the union of our differences, not in the suppression of them." Emily, with tears in her eyes but a radiant smile, responded, "I promise to build with you a home that transcends walls and roofs, a refuge made of trust, respect, and acceptance. I promise to never fear being who I am, while celebrating who we become together. And I promise, above all, to always remember that our love is not defined by what the world expects of us, but by what we choose to be for each other with each new dawn." The party that followed was as eclectic as the guest list, an unlikely mix of traditions, music, dances, and celebrations that perfectly reflected the union of worlds that Nathan and Emily represented. There was expensive champagne and cold beer, sophisticated canapes and bar snacks, classical music and rock, emotional speeches and relaxed jokes. At one point, while dancing close amid other couples on the small dance floor, Nathan whispered in Emily's ear, "Did you know the tabloids are calling this the most unusual wedding of the year?" Emily laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. "Let them talk. This is our story, not theirs." 6 months later, the house on the hill was finally ready. Not exactly as they had originally planned, but even more special. The modifications reflected the evolution of their own relationship. More shared spaces, a double office where both could work side by side, a room adapted for Jessica during her frequent visits, a large deck facing the lake where they gathered friends from both worlds for dinners that broke down social barriers. Nathan resumed his active role in business, but with a different approach, more balanced, more aware of what really mattered in life beyond financial success. Emily completed her studies with distinction, and after graduating, received invitations from both the public hospital where she had interned and the Sarah Morgan Foundation, now administered by the Independent Board. After much reflection, she accepted a divided position between the two institutions, 3 days a week at the public hospital, attending children without resources, and 2 days at the institute, contributing with her experience to complex cases. It was a solution that honored both her social commitment and her professional excellence. Charles gradually rebuilt fragile but genuine bonds with his daughters. There was never complete forgiveness or forgetting of the abandonment, but an adult relationship was born based on respect for the shared past and the possibility of a future where old mistakes didn't permanently define people. On a particularly significant afternoon, almost 2 years after the wedding, Emily and Nathan received the news that would complete the circle of renewal in their lives. She was pregnant. The confirmation came after some months of trying to conceive naturally, when they were already beginning to consider medical alternatives. A girl, revealed the ultrasound a few weeks later, perfectly healthy. That night, sitting on the veranda of their home, contemplating the sunset reflected in the lake, Nathan held Emily's hand over her still almost imperceptible belly. "I was thinking about names," he commented hesitantly, "and I wanted to suggest Sarah." Emily turned to him, studying his face for signs of conflict or guilt. She found none, only love, hope, and genuine peace. "Sarah," she repeated, savoring the sound. "It's a beautiful name. Are you sure? That's what you want?" Nathan nodded, emotional. "Sarah taught me to love deeply. You taught me to love again, to rebuild, to believe in second chances. Our daughter will be witness to this legacy of love that transcends even loss. I can't think of a more appropriate tribute." Emily rested her head on his shoulder, watching the first stars appear in the twilight sky. She thought about all the twists life had presented her, the loss of her parents, the years of struggle to raise her sister, the abandonment of her own dreams, the devastating revelation about her father, the unexpected encounter with Nathan, the challenges of uniting such different worlds, and now, the promise of a new life she carried in her womb. "Sarah Spencer Morgan," she finally said. "A name that carries stories from before her existence, a name that honors the past while embracing the future." Nathan kissed her softly, a gesture that still carried, after all those months together, the same tenderness and wonder as at the beginning. Her story that will continue far beyond us. And so in that house built with love on foundations that survived storms, Emily and Nathan contemplated the next chapter of their journey. Not as an unlikely couple from distant worlds, not as characters in a modern fairy tale that the tabloids so liked to portray, but as two people who found in each other the courage to start over, the strength to face adversities, and the wisdom to build something lasting from the ruins of what they had lost. Life, both understood, rarely follows the script we imagine for it. Sometimes it presents us with devastating losses, other times unexpected encounters that change everything. The secret wasn't in avoiding the storms or in pretending that the differences didn't exist. It was in building foundations strong enough to resist the gales and in choosing, with each dawn, love as a compass to navigate the most turbulent seas. And if there was a lesson both had learned in their unlikely journey together, it was that happy endings are not magical destinations, but daily choices. Choices of forgiveness, of beginning again, of courage to love even when fear whispers that it's safer to protect oneself. As night fell completely over the house on the hill, bringing with it the comfort of the stars and the promise of dawn, Emily and Nathan remained hand in